right, so we are live here on the Comics Lounge with Jason Douglas, the writer of Jane American. So tell us a little bit about Jane.
Well, so Jane is actually my second book, and it's a very deeply personal story. It's a post World War II kind of like coming of age story, and it's like super personal to me. In the same way that my first book was, but this one is very much named after and inspired by my late grandmother, who went through some of the same things that Jane goes through in this story, kind of coming of age in that era. It's a 32-page one-shot full-color comic that we're doing a Kickstarter for, going live on May 2nd. It kind of introduces us to Jane's world and exploring the deeper themes of identity, gender, self-worth, and that small town societal norms in post-World War II America. I'm going to give you some comps of like Superman for All Seasons, Archie 1941. Really like the tagline that I'm working on is like, this story is it'll break your heart. It'll make you cheer, and it's going to shock you with this cliffhanger ending that comic fans will love and will recognize. It's going to leave you begging for more. So it's like Jane is a 15-year-old protagonist.
Hey,
Spider's Lair.
hey, what's up?
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you. Hey, by the way, I know I'm literally in the middle of the pitch for the book, but I wanted to say thank you so much for like literally moments ago for that very kind post and the well wishes and
oh yeah, of course, yeah. No problem. We meet it, and you're aware of thoughts in our prayers, so definitely.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like I'm sure it's something we'll talk about in a little bit, but like, holy cow! Like if putting indie comics in the world is not hard enough, but like doing it with colon cancer at the same time. And Chris, like I told you, trying to convince 188th graders every day that English is worth learning is. Yep. Good Lord, I don't know where I have the time. Anyway, as I was telling you guys, so it's like you got Jane, who's at 15 in the present day of the book in 1946, and her life is filled with more than enough responsibility for somebody coming of age at that time in wartime small town America. A major family tragedy changes her in some rather unbelievable ways that are better left hidden, right? And economic hardship post-war has left her with a choice. You can stay safe, you can stay hidden, you can keep who you really are a secret, or you can embrace who you really are for the sake of everybody that you love. And I'm really excited about this book because, like I mentioned, it's like deeply personal to me. It's inspired by my late grandmother. It's very much dedicated to my grandfather, who just passed away 2 weeks ago, but made it to 99 years old. World War II.
Wow.
And
the greatest generation.
Yeah, totally. And like I'm telling you guys, like, you get like the sympathy thing, right? Oh, your grandpa passed away. I feel really bad. Like, dude made it to 99 years old plus a month, got to go in his sleep, and like got to live this full life. And I'll tell you what, it's gonna sound almost cliched, but like one of his last big wishes is to see this book in print, because his name's in it, his likeness is in it. Love it. He had the script at his bedside, got to see all like the preliminary pages, all the pages that you guys will get to see in Kickstarter on May 2nd. And like, it would like bring him to tears because there's his high school sweetheart's name in print. You know what I mean?
That's nice.
Named after. And it like meant so much. And now I'll tell you what, one of the things that I'm proudest about with this book, and he actually got to be a part of, is because it takes place in a very historically accurate Plymouth, Michigan, which is one of the suburbs of Detroit. Okay. And so one of the places where you have some of the surrounding areas of Detroit that got all the factories, the car companies all turned into like bomber factories, right? During World War II, got war contracts. And there's this wire factory in Plymouth called Wall Wire that my great grandfather actually worked in during the war. And they got a war contract and they converted over to what you call Marsden mats. And if you don't know that name, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because those are the long kind of like corrugated metal mats that they turned into the temporary runways in Europe and the Pacific in World War II. And so in the research for this book, Like if we talk about my first book, Parallel, I did the exact same thing. I am a stickler for the details, because if I'm ever going to ask you as an audience to suspend your disbelief about, I don't know, in Parallel, a parallel version of the main character reaching out and offering a second chance,
Yeah.
Book maybe a character who can do some things and speed and strength that other people can't do. If I'm going to ask you to suspend your disbelief even for a second, I am not going to mess with you on anything else. It's going to, it would drive me nuts if there's even one pedantic nerd out there. I'm one of them. Like in Parallel, there's a scene in the back of an ambulance after like this character gets run over by a bus. And like, I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be that guy who like makes up a bunch of medical terms. So like I call my cousin, the doctor in Boston, and like literally got like every single line is, hey, I just did my residency in the back of it. This is what they would say. This is what they would say. Called the dude, my college roommate, who is now a police officer and works for the DA. I need to know exactly what would be said with this and this and this. And the same thing with this book, right?
Yep.
Like meticulously researched. And my favorite part of my favorite part of this. So Wall Wire, this real place, and it's kind of one of the main settings of the book. My grandfather and I, this is a little bit, it's just pre-COVID, so I'm in the research phase. 97-year-old dude and me get to walk into the actual factory, check this out, the week before they tore it down and partitioned it for office space. And they had stripped them of studs. And it's like, wow. I've got film and photos that references for my art is like all the original brickwork, the conveyor belts where like the mats went across. Here's the basement stairs where this scene's going to take place. There's the railroad depot where they load it on and it goes to Detroit and then it goes over to Europe and goes over to the Pacific. I mean, like I'm so like excited about, probably details that 5 people will appreciate, but those won't be the 5 people who are going to reach out to me and call me out for getting it wrong. So it's pretty cool.
So you reminded me a lot of have you ever seen the show on Netflix Hyperdrive?
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen
that was filmed like literally 10 minutes down the street from where I live.
Okay.
And my in-laws, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, both used to work at Kodak in those buildings. So it was awesome to see like these cars driving through the buildings that they once worked at.
Right.
And to hear their stories about like buildings, like it's real to a lot of people. And like you said, it might only be 5 or 6 people, but it's so real to them that if it's not 100% accurate, they're going to notice, and that's what they're going to go to instead of how amazing the story is.
Right. I'm a ridiculous nerd about a dozen things. Right. And because of that, when you love something, if you have like that high functioning OCD like me, like you get really into it, right?
You're a stickler to the details,
right? So like, have I read comics that, for the most part, I loved in the past, but then there's that one scene that just takes you out of it. It happens in movies, it happens in TV, right? I mean, how many times do you hear the doctors that complain about that one episode of ER or Grey's Anatomy, right? Or the lawyer that complains that scene, that's not how that's done. I don't like, what? One person gets taken out of one of my stories and that's going to bum me out. So the research process was pretty intense for this.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's like, it's what I've done with both my books so far. And kind of one of my favorite things about it is, it's for who it's for. It reaches the audience it reaches, but I'm also creating it from a stance of like something I would want to read too. And for me, rereadability is really big. Mm-hmm. Bang for your buck has always been a really big deal for me. And then the idea of, layers, like the idea of at my heart, I'm a comic book nerd. So like Parallel, total nerd sci-fi story, but that's the wrapping paper that at its depth or at its core are deeper themes of, existential dread of time passing and you deferring on your dreams and that the anxiety that creates, right? And Jane American's the exact same thing. we've got a very, very common, I'm trying not to say the words because there's a scene at the end of the one shot that is just like, you'll know. But like one of the big comic book tropes, right? The fact that there's somebody who can do some things that nobody else can do. But that's the sci-fi nerd wrapping paper that we all love. But at its core, it's about identity. It's about, being who you are and that self-worth. And not only, because I mentioned at my day job, I've been a public school teacher for the last 23 years. Not only is it obviously very much inspired by and dedicated to now a couple of past family members, but like it's really, really also inspired and dedicated to like every single student who's walked through my classroom the last 23 years who still in the 21st century is struggling with that societal pressure of telling them to be somebody that they're not, right? Yep. And that discomfort of like, whether you're gay or straight, whether you're big or small, whether you're black or white, whether you're a nerd or a jock, somebody telling you that you can't fully embrace who you are. And you extrapolate that back to 1946 when those strictures were just like exponentially harder. And that's what's at the core of the story.
Definitely, because I mean, there's so much to just go with just on that, because you look at what some people had to go through back then, whether it was like, I mean, they could have been straight white male, but if they weren't the straight white male that people were looking for them to be, they were ousted. Like it wasn't as easy as everyone makes it out to be.
Right.
Because I mean, there was a lot going on. I mean, I love that you're doing post-war. It's one of like post-World War II and like that 1920s to 1950 era is one of my favorite things to study. I loved growing up studying it in high school, elementary school, and even into college. My concentration as a teacher was social studies. The fact that I became a math teacher is just because that's where the job was.
Right.
And like, I absolutely love that era because it goes in so many different directions. Yeah. It's amazing to watch where society went throughout all of the different things that happened in a span of literally 30 years.
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't that long ago.
Excited. I'll be really, really excited for you to read it. Not only for the details, right? Because if you're a history nerd like me, like I want you to notice. I want you to notice that ice box in the kitchen is like a model from 1936 because they're not a rich family. And even though that scene is 1942, it ain't the 1942 model. Like I want you to see that punch clock in the is period accurate, and the pickup truck is not a 1950s pickup truck. It's like a 1932 pickup truck, right?
Wait, so your comic takes place post World War II?
Yeah, well, it's gonna run. So like the one shot, the earliest scene is like 1939, and the present day is 1946. So like the bulk of the story, and the goal is after we get the Kickstarter funded, like the big story is 120-page OGN that my dream is it's going to end up in libraries, it's going to end up in classrooms, it's going to end up in bookstores. It's for everybody, but it would be very accessible and like Chris said, like the history aspect of it would be perfect for like a high school history nerd like we were, right?
Yeah, that's really cool because I know I told Chris and I think I told Spazler too. I don't remember. I studied history. I was a history major in college, and I did that for my time in grad school also. And before my last project I was doing was comic books in history and how they could be used as a historical reference and not just storytelling. But the comic books be used as like for those who can't really attend college, but for everyone too, like comic books are a source of history. And that's why I was doing.
I'll tell you what.
And I like how you were talking about how you're going time period accurate. It's like interesting how you're doing that. Like you want it in schools and too, because that's why I was arguing for too that they should be in schools too, or certain like especially the ones that are history oriented or talk about very specific time periods that they should be in school and they should maybe be part of a curriculum.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So like 2 points on that. Like my comic book origin story is like very typical But besides coming to comic books a little bit late, right? I didn't have an older sibling. I didn't have cool parents. I didn't have the kid down the street who turned me on to this band and told me to do this or that. So I always came to everything a little bit late, right? And I didn't get the comic books until I was like 12. But once I was there, I was all in. But then I did that typical story thing, right? Where somewhere late teenage, you drift away. And I took my 9-year hiatus, right? And the only 2 books that followed me in that 9-year hiatus before I walked back into my first comic shop again, sometime in my mid-late 20s, was Neil Gaiman's Sandman followed me, and then Art Spiegelman's Mouse. And Mouse followed me not only because of how great it is, but because, Alex, I needed it for like 3 or 4 different college classes because it was on the curriculum even back then in the 90s. And like I remember I had to buy it like 4 times because it was so funny. Like non-comic book people would discover it. I'd lend it to them and I'd never get it back, or they'd steal it from me and I'd never get it back. Because look, I truly believe that comics are the most malleable medium to tell a story in. Mm-hmm. They do what prose does, a lot of things that prose does, and a bunch of things that prose can't. They do a bunch of stuff that film does and a bunch of stuff that film can't. It's kind of like this medium ground that's the best of both worlds in a lot of ways, right? It's you get the pause button of a film without the awkwardness of actually pausing, right? It's your own choice, and you get the thick, rich detail of prose, but you get somebody's visual interpretation the same way as you do film. It's beautiful, and there's like no limitations too. It doesn't have the limitations of the other two, and honestly, maybe I'm a little biased because that's where I'm at. I think indie comics are the most malleable of the most malleable medium, right? Because you don't necessarily have, and I'm not here to crap on the big 2 because that's what I grew up with, and those are companies that still get several of my dollars, every month. But like if you think about indies, you don't have 80 to 90 years of editorial mandate that necessarily dictates what kind of story you can tell and which character you can do what to, and it kind of allows you to go anywhere you want, right? Like it allowed me to write a really dark, wicked sci-fi tale that wraps up in 64 pages, and you don't need a second book. It's going to allow me to write this coming of age story in post World War II America that doesn't necessarily have, even though it's got a lot of things in common, doesn't necessarily have a place in an expanded superhero universe, right? Yeah. And I really appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, and I'm rambling, but Alex, I want to get back to that point. So before I was an 8th grade teacher, I was an elementary school teacher for 13 years. And I'm telling you, dude, comics in the classroom, it was a miracle. Okay. First couple of years teaching 3rd graders and 4th graders, one of my biggest frustrations was that the reluctant reader, right, who was already several grade levels behind, and the stigma of reading something below your grade level meant they were never going to catch up. Yep. You got silent reading time, and you got this boy, this 10-year-old boy, this 9-year-old boy who's got a 700-page book in his hand. He's at a kindergarten reading level, and he's like literally reading it upside down just because of the chain of you can't put Frog and Toad in his hands because he's embarrassed, right? Mm-hmm.
You got to put the 700-page book with the Frog and Toad and
put a comic in that kid's hand. Reading level goes out the window because there's no shame.
Because
it doesn't come until you become an adult. And it was, and I discovered this right about the exact same time, actually about a year earlier, but right about the exact same time that Scholastic bought Bone from Jeff Smith, colorized it, and started putting out those cheap trade paperbacks. And I swear to God, boys, I went to the Scholastic book, the warehouse. Teachers get like 50% off once a year. I go there every year and rebuy all 9 volumes because the kids like tore them to shreds with love every single year. And it literally changed the reading program in my room and in my building and was amazing.
Bone is amazing. I have the complete edition.
You got one of the bricks? You got the brick, the big fat?
Yeah, the big paperback. I got in Barnes & Noble. I saw it. I heard of it, never read it, but I'm so glad I bought it. I bought it on a whim. It's like, you know what? I've never read a single word of this, but I'm gonna read it, and I'm glad I did. Yeah.
And I got to one of the biggest honors of my relatively short comics career over the last couple of years was when my first book got nominated for 2 Ringo Awards for Best Writer and Best Single Issue or Story.
Oh,
and I got to head out to Baltimore and to the Ringo Awards. And I got up on stage and I got to present the first few awards, and I got to give a speech about what Ringo meant to me. And his book, he passed away pretty young, and but his book Telos was literally the first comic that I brought in my 4th grade classroom, and it literally changed everything. And I got to kind of give I got to tell that story, and I got some laughs and I got some applause, and it made his brother cry. And because all the lives that he touched, and it was just this magical moment. Now, as soon as that was done, I sat down and very gracefully lost both my awards to the dude who writes Batman, because I can't compete with Batman. But honored to be nominated, right? And but it was just so cool, like that full circle thing of amongst who are considered my peers now, a lot of my heroes, right? Yeah. And at this award show that was literally named after the dude who because his book was so cool, is what I brought in my classroom first, and that was just amazing.
Yeah. So going off of that, like, what writer has really inspired you over the years?
The easy answer, and I'm not talking necessarily stylistically, but as far as inspiration goes, is Neil Gaiman, flat out.
Okay.
I met him twice. And the first time was like way back in 2004 at this bizarre open source convention for Linux or something I didn't understand, but Neil was going to be there. So I was going to be there. And his son was working for Linux at the time. So like he went there and he did a bunch of readings, and this was mind blowing. I got 35 minutes where it was just him and me having this conversation. His daughter at the time was a 4th grader. I was teaching a 4th grade. My class, we wrote him letters because end of the year, one of our treats was we would listen to Neil read Coraline on CD by candlelight in the classroom to make it creepy.
That's cool. Awesome. I wish we did that.
Oh, it was wicked cool. So, and they wrote him letters, and he wrote back and signed a bunch of stuff for us and whatever. And I got to hang out with him. And now this is whoa, guys, this is what, a decade and a half, 2 decades before I'm doing this myself. But like, there's a seed burning in my head since I'm 12 years old. Like, this has always been the dream, but like, I'm never brave enough to pull the trigger on it, right? But he told me this thing, and he said this publicly before, and he gave me this piece of advice. And it was basically just like, how do you write a comic? Well, you write it, right? And it's as simple as that. And it sounds trite, right? It sounds like almost dismissive. It's not. Because the way he explained it to me, it's always stuck with me. And I've kind of turned it into my own advice when anybody asks me. And it's this. It's like, if you make something, it doesn't have to be a comic. It can be your music. It can be your show. It can be anything. If you make something, it exists, right? Mm-hmm. Can't promise you that it's going to be good. Can't promise you what happens next with it, but it exists. And now you can do something with it. You can make it better. You can put it out into the world. You can try. You can fail. But what he promised me, and what I promise anybody who asks, is if you don't do it, nothing will happen. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I promise you what happens when you do it, but I absolutely promise you that if you don't start writing, if you don't start making, nothing will happen.
Can I use that?
Yeah,
because I have a comic book club, and I'm teaching my students how to make their own comics. And those 2 brothers that really wanted to do their own comics. So I think that's, you put it, like you saying all this, like, damn, that's like gold right there. That's advice.
I love it. It feels almost overly simplified, and yet it's true. I think it really, really works. It's always stuck with me, and I've always been very thankful for him for that. Now, So he's like my guy in that respect. Like he's the looming over top of everything, the inspiration from day one kind of thing. In the modern, more contemporary world, give me Jeff Lemire every single day. Oh my God. And Matt Kint and Scott Snyder and a whole bunch of others that are just like kind of the modern day heroes for me. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
It's amazing.
Well, I would like to ask you a question because it's funny that you're talking about comic because everything you just said, it made me like really chuckle inside because we're actually making a comic right now. And I'm at the process right now of getting the art together. I really can't wait to show it off. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's not about me. But what you just said was 100% true. And I say this to everybody out there. Absolutely. I already started. I got the art going. I got the script going. I have the order. I say, like, for what I learned from doing this is stay grounded on what you're trying to tell in the story and try to make sure that you stick to your topics. Yeah. I try to, like what I did real quick in my story was I try to come up with an origin story that kind of skips to the main character. Because we could always go back later on and tweak things here and there. But, you know, one origin story is just like another origin story. And I always and I thought about the construction of how I was going to put my thoughts down and how I was going to relate to the audience and what kind of audience I grew up with, because I'm not even about, like, I'm more or less about the artist. I mean my artists, I'm going back to like John Romita Jr., John Romita. I mean I was at my height of collecting in the 80s when Todd the God was just on fire. And that whole symbiotic story was coming together, and Secret Wars 8 happened a few years before that, and that was just something that really, for me, that's when comics really like went to the next level, and I love that. And I have a lot of inspiration with that. And my story is, you know, based on, like, I say like this, it's out there in the universe, like you said, I'm putting it out there, and I'm getting good responses, and I just say like this to anybody that's out there, do it. Whatever you got to do is fine. I'm trying to self-fund this. I'm doing this simple. But like you said, I'm going to put it out there and see what happens. And I have no regrets. I've been taking my time with this. It's been a few months. I have a hidden artist. We've been working on this together, and we've been contributing. And what's cool about this also is I also say collaborate. You know, get your stuff together, but collaborate, because collaboration is very important. Because my artist brought to me very important things that I didn't even see, that they pointed out to me, and I was like, and I tell this also to anybody, you know what? You're getting credit in the story. Of course, you're helping the story evolve. So it's not only that I'm doing the story, that I have it all written down, like not most of it written down. I have all of it in my head, and it's literally like the size of freaking, I don't know, the Tolkien universe. I'm not even in brag rights. I just made yesterday about 9 new characters. I'm creating them like crazy, hundreds and hundreds of them. Like I said, I'll be back on here when everything's all said and done. You know,
so like it's funny. So like hearing other people.
Sorry, I get all excited.
Like hearing other people talk about their work, it's hilarious because it's going in to 2 different parts of my brain, right? The person who's also creating comics out there in the world. I'm hearing your story. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I love that. Here's my advice on that. And then the other part of my brain is my teacher brain. And I'm going, okay, like I'm now the editor, and I'm like, I'm thinking about it and going, okay, all right. Yep. That's good. That's good. You should do that, because like, it's so, I got to tell you guys, the thing that has blown me away the most across the last few years, whether it be the writing process, the production process, definitely going to cons and meeting people and signing books and stuff like that, has been how much my classroom experience has translated directly to all these different aspects of the comic book world experience. And like working with collaborators, right? Or helping somebody out on a book, you know, like somebody who reaches out to me on Instagram and DMs me and is like, hey, I got this idea. What do you think of this? I completely automatically go into teacher mode, because I mean, if you think about it, you know, like how many times a year am I literally reading and editing and giving feedback on like 180 essays? You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like that part of my brain kicks in. Same thing with like going to cons. It's like that idea of even like the repetition of like giving the same pitch over and over again, right? It's been amazing how much it's directly translated. I'm having a crappy day. My students are never going to know. I'm having a crappy day. You're still getting my biggest smile, my biggest handshake, and my best pitch at a con. Like it's been so like almost one-to-one correspondence that it's just blown me away.
K-pop junkie wants to know if you're going to Motor City.
If I'm going to Motor City this year, so I've done Motor City a couple of times now. If I'm going to Motor City today, it might be as a one day and as a fan. I'm going to Traverse City this year, which is a week later and a little further up north in Michigan. And then a couple of like street fairs and whatever. Like right now, it's kind of like a mini tour this spring to promote a special edition of my first book, which is out there right now. So I'm like selling that out on the road, and then kind of like overlapping with the promotion for Jane American for like the Kickstarter, and kind of like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, which is terrifying and exhausting and exhilarating all at once.
2 questions. I guess the first one, I missed the beginning. I'm sorry I came in late.
Yeah.
Are you doing both the writing and the art?
Dude, you don't want to see my art. Nobody wants to see my art. No. Like
second question.
No,
is,
I've got on Jane American. I'm very, 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 very pleased to basically introduce to the world Annie Wright. Annie Wright is going to be a star. I am an old man. She is 21. She is like the youth of this project and has talent to spare. So she's the artist on the book, and Dr. Christy Blanche, who is a superstar writer in her own right, a retailer in Indiana, and also one of the most in-demand panel moderators for cons across the country. She's our editor. Mm-hmm. And I've got Dave Lentz on inks and design, and that dude has done everything. And I'm very happy to announce 2 cover artists for the Kickstarter exclusives that are actively going to blow your mind. So I've got Malia Elwert, who is straight off of her gig as an animator for DreamWorks, who is doing some Good Boy covers, and her first book is coming out in a couple months from SourcePoint Press. And then you may know him because he wrote Iceman for X-Men and for Marvel, and he's doing Superman for DC right now, and was the editor of The Walking Dead and ran Skybound for years for Kirkman. Messina Grace did a cover for me as well, and I am
nice.
Oh my God, guys! Both of the covers, but the Cena cover, we aged it so it looks old. And then we'll put it through this really cool printing process called a soft touch laminate. Kind of feels like suede. It's literally Garrett Gunn of Good Boy fame named it the Granddad's Attic variant. It's literally going to look
awesome.
I love that name.
It's going to look, gentlemen, it's going to look and feel like it's been in the attic since 1946.
Nice.
And it's going to feel like an old comic. It's going to look like an old comic. It's wicked cool. And then the Malia cover just explodes off the page, and it's bright, it's vibrant, and it's like the main Kickstarter variant. I'm doing a very limited textless variant because it looks gorgeous, and then because I'm a comic book nerd from the 90s, and look, as much as I loved Image, Valiant was my jam in the early 90s, and so there will be that the Malia cover is going to get an old school chromium treatment.
Yes.
Just like Turok number 1 and Bloodshot number 1. And it's going to shine, and I'm going to nerd out, and I'm going to love it. And
that sounds amazing.
Hopefully people
Look
will.
what I found laying
There you
around.
go, dude. Let's get some oil on these suckers, right?
Yo, Spot's like, why do you have flex like that? It's like, I just have this laying around.
What, this?
I just have
This
like,
is
what?
a flex.
I just happen to have some 90s foil just to show off.
This is for me. This is just like when I read. I mean, I got plenty of these.
I've been wanting that cover for
mint
so long.
condition.
Second question, Jason.
I mean,
What about this
there's
one? This one's not too much off the hook, right? I got another 50 here. See, I just got them laying around.
Hey, look.
But yeah, you know what's
I
funny?
know,
We gotta talk, Jason, because I got a lot. You like Valiant? Oh, brother, I got everything Valiant.
dude.
Any cover you could tell me, I have. It don't
Okay.
matter. Look, I found one. I'm gonna tell you about one. Since you like Valiant, you're gonna appreciate this story. I found one because I do bundles with different people across the country. It's one of those things on the East Coast that were like the books that were supposed to be taken and destroyed. You know, yeah, sure, Freddie, we destroyed it. Don't worry about it. So they're still out there. Shh. I'm not giving up the whole secret. So anyway, so when we get these books, right, I had got one, and I guess they must have packed it the wrong way. They usually put special ones sometimes in the middle. I got it was a number 9, Why in the Future Force, number 9, gold edition, signed by Sean Chen. And yes, I verified the signature is going to CBCS soon. And it is Sean Chen's signature. Found that in one of these packs. So This is the kind of like, but I'm telling you, like with my Valiant collection, I have all of that. The Magnus Robot Fighter. I mean, I love those Chromeo 25s. Oh, those are like one of my favorites. What are your favorites, by the way? Like, what do you like out of those?
As a kid, it was bizarre because like I loved Shadow Man, I loved Exo.
Yeah, I like Shadow Man. I have all of them.
But do you know what this is bizarre? Do you know what my favorite book was?
What?
Archer and Armstrong.
You know, I was gonna say that. It's funny because that was the next book that was coming up. Archer and Armstrong is really badass, and I have a lot of that.
I think it was the Barry Windsor Smith writing and art.
Yes,
I think that got me. But there was something dude. There was something about that universe that it was tight for a while, right? Like pre-Unity and even post-Unity for a couple of years. It was like tightly written and tightly controlled. It wasn't sprawling and out of control like the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
and it was like. It was better writing than any of the Image books, right? And it was more realistic art for the most part, at least for the first few years. And it just really spoke to me. And I had it was, you know what, guys, that was my pull list. I mean, when I went into the shop at 12, at 13, at 14, at 15, was I buying a copy of Wolverine 50 because that die cut cover was wicked cool? Of course I did.
Yeah.
But my pull list, my stories that I was following was basically every Valiant book for every month, right? And Sandman. And like I collected until I was out. I missed the last couple of years. But I'll tell you what, I walked back into a comic shop. In my, in like 2003, 2004, because of Neil Gaiman again. I don't know, do you guys remember when he wrote, he came back to comics after being away from comics for like 7 years, because he wrote that Marvel 1602 book. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it was like all the Marvel characters, but they were back in like 1602, Queen Elizabeth's reign. And he actually wrote it as a fundraiser to pay the legal fees, and then donate all the rest when he was in his McFarlane battle over Spawn number 9 and the rights to
Angelina.
Yep.
Yep. And I have that one. Nice.
Yeah. So I walked back into the comic shop for that, but like as soon as the comic world got its hooks back into me, like the collector world did, my first mission, you like this, was to literally put together an entire Valiant run.
Oh, nice.
And I did it old school. I'm talking in person only, digging through dollar bins, whatever. And I had to be patient. I remember the last book of like every title, it was like an Exo 62, it's a late era one. It's not the last issue, so it's a dollar bin book, but it took me like 6 years to find. I had to be patient, man.
How long did it take you, like in total?
I mean, eBay is tempting. But like I wanted to find it in person, just like the old days, and it was very satisfying when I did.
That's how it was for me in that ASM 300. There was one day where I walked into my LCS and it was sitting on the shelf.
Let me turn on my light. I'll be right back.
My birthday was like a month away. My wife was with me, and I think it was up for sale for like $500-$600. And I looked at her and I said, it'll be a beautiful birthday gift to myself to buy this right now. And my LCS owner goes, would it be even better if I did it for $400? I go, hell yeah, it'd be better if you did it for $400. Sold.
Oh, Oh,
He goes, I literally just got this back today. I
hey,
don't
Alex,
even. I didn't know if I wanted to sell it.
Promise me
but
you won't die.
That's how that book ended up in my collection.
That's cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex,
Those
I'm
are
gonna
the
show you something. Wait, God, I'm sorry. You finish first, and I want him
well,
to wait a minute.
like the collector in me. Like it's funny. Like my hunting list, my want list is like if I hand it to like a retailer, or I hand it to a dealer, like at a show or whatever. It always melts their brain a little bit because it's like it's all over the place, right? Like Daredevil #1's on there next to like next to a book that if you paid 50 cents, you're gonna get ripped off. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just all over the place. And then the cool thing about the hunt is you get a good deal on something that you consider like a key or whatever. That's great, but like I'm jumping up and down when I find because I wanted that Barry Windsor Smith cover, or I wanted that.
I know what you mean.
I wanted that Magnolia cover. Like literally when I put together. Do you know the Magnolia run of covers from Classic X-Men?
Yes, I've been. Oh my God, guys! In case you don't know this, because a lot of people get used to bagging the boarded. Flip those babies around. There's so much badass artwork. I've been getting them in doubles. I've been finding them in barcodes. So what I do is when I find them in barcodes, I put them together, one to the front, one to the back.
Oh, nice.
If I don't find the barcode, if I find the same issue, I take one from the front and I put the one in the back. So I've been doing all my Classic X-Men like that, and I've been very lucky.
But finding those, I was jumping up and down just as much as when I found a really good deal on my Hellboy Next Men book. You know what I mean? Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I always wanted. That's something I paid a pretty penny for. But like finding that final Magnolia Classic X-Men cover for 50 cents, I was just as happy.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like that's how I've been doing. Like with the bundles I've been telling you, it's like I find these in crate. Like, look, I just got this one recently. And it's not all that special, but I got this one. Astonishing X-Men #1.
Yeah. That's Age of Apocalypse, right?
Yep, Age of Apocalypse, the first one. And this one's badass. I get a lot of these. I have a bunch of these, but I wanted to show this to Alex. So, Alex, I'm going to be flexing a little bit. This is flexing to me, by the way. So, yo, you get ready because I'm about to show you guys something crazy in this right here. Check it out. Wow. You see that?
Why you gotta do that with us?
Do you see that?
Nice Stan Lee
and Tom McFarlane, but he's in the first page of this book.
Wow.
So
dang,
that's one of the 300s I have.
So I heard that used to be a thing.
Oh, wait a minute! Right up there, look, check it out. If you look up, to
artists and writers didn't want to ruin the covers, so they would sign the inside.
With the 301.
With a ballpoint.
Yes, exactly. That's when this got signed. Exactly what you're saying, because nobody back then was thinking, hey Todd, just sign the inside. Don't worry about it.
I don't know if there's a Jack Kirby. I don't know if there's a Jack Kirby signature out there that isn't on the inside front page.
Yeah. It's always the first page. And you gotta understand, Todd was taught by the old schoolers. He really admired that kind of art. He was a young rock star. They thought he was young and perpetual, but still, he respected the elders. He respected the law. I love Tom McFarlane for that reason. And, I'm a big supporter of everything he's done with the Images Spawn. I mean, it's a struggle to do anything in the world, but you have to admire the tenacity of a man like that who had everything. Like, he had Marvel. He could have did Spider-Man forever. And he was like, no, I want to branch out and do something else on my own. I love that, Always
check those older books and
Yeah.
Oh, Jason,
quick. You never know what's inside them, in all honesty. And also check them because you never know what's not inside them.
Check that one out.
Marvel Valley.
I got to put these all away.
Right? Will you be coming to California?
When am I coming to California?
Yeah.
When you convince a convention to fly me out there, then I'm there, buddy.
Damn. All right. Looks like
do you know how much public school teachers make? You know how much public school teachers make? I think I got a raise this year. I think I'm making $12 or 12 cents a day now. So
oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, especially in Michigan, you guys don't have unions, do you?
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Our unions got our knees cut out from us years ago, but
okay.
Aren't you guys all
we're
part
still
of the
pretty
USP?
strong.
I thought the UFT was like I know there's different unions in different schools, but is it the UFT part of all the teachers unions?
No,
teachers?
teachers union. Like we've got the MEA. MEA is Michigan Educational Association, and then NEA is the national one, and MEA is a subset of that. I mean, it's not like my mom and her two sisters all taught for 30 plus years in the district I grew up in, and like there's like these war stories about like when they would go on strike, and I had this I had this military history teacher in high school named Mr. Rob. Who my two favorite things he did was he'd occasionally jump up on the table with a meter stick and show us how to bayonet a guy. That was always really entertaining. But he also had these great stories about scabs trying to break the picket line of teacher strikes and stuff, and how he was like the guy who would jump on the car and hang on to the side view mirrors like this person was trying to bust through it, while it's just like in the classroom, Jesus, this guy,
get out of here, you bum.
Yeah, exactly. so the right for us to strike has been taken away. A lot of our collective bargaining has been taken away, but we still do pretty good. I mean, we've got a decently strong union for teachers in Michigan still, for sure.
Yeah, people just don't know how hard it is to be a civil servant in this country. Mm-hmm. They think it's easy. It's not.
I want to move out of Western New York, but at the same time, I don't know where I'd move to where there's going to be no snow, but a bunch of other natural disasters constantly happening. And two, California. I want to make sure that there's a teachers union that actually gets people paid.
Yeah. It's. You put all those things together, and we're talking about some pretty rare, specific places, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
I'm staying put for now. I was going to go to Florida, but I'll be honest, up in the East Coast, I'm making, good money, so it's enough for me to hang out. But yeah, it's very hard to know where to go. It depends on what you like. I say like this: if you like hot weather, go somewhere where the weather won't be too hot. But I always hear like Texas, Florida. I don't know about Florida, man. I don't care for snow either way. I've had enough snow to last me 4 lifetimes. You know what I'm saying? Like
I want snow.
I'll miss it. I want to miss it. I really do. I just never had an opportunity in my whole life to miss it.
So every single day before class with the 8th graders, we do for every hour. I've got this prompt right up on the board, and it's just it gets their brains going, gets them talking to each other. And it runs the gamut, right? Like this one's about today's was like, what's the worst thing a sibling ever did to you? And they're telling the horror stories of siblings. Sometimes it's sometimes it's academic related. We had one earlier. It's invisibility or flight, right? Which is that thought experiment. Plus it's fun because it's
flight,
right? Superhero stuff. And we had a simple one where it was just like, what's your favorite season, right? Very, very simple. And but it got pretty heavy because like people are like this and that. And they asked me, and I was like, look, I got 2 answers, right? Because I'm still in the same boat you guys are, I have to say summer. But truth is, if school didn't exist, right? If work didn't exist, fall would be number 1 for me. Winter would be number 2. Summer would probably be last because sweat is gross. And but like, time off of school, that's always going to be your favorite. But like, oh yeah, dude, I'm with you. Like, I'd rather build a snow fort than sweat it out at the beach, honestly.
Yeah, I'll be honest. We have a nice pool in the lair, so we always in the pool in the summer. The minute I can open that thing up, that's it. I'm taking my filter. I can clean my filter. No. I'll pay somebody to clean that. I'm taking everything, getting it done, getting ready. Yeah.
I don't want it. I'm not ready for the summer. Summers here get really hot. It's like over the 100, 115, 13. I'm not ready for that.
Thank you.
Aren't you guys like usually running at 75 in the winter?
Huh?
Aren't you guys usually running at 75 degrees in the winter?
No, in the winter it's like 65, sometimes 50s. In the winter.
Oh my God! You guys are feeling cold right now.
By definition, that's not winter.
I want.
That's it. You're talking to 3 Easterners right now.
I know. I'm talking to California, so I want snow.
You don't know nothing about what it means to be cold. Go into the mountains.
I've been in the cold before. I've been in Colorado for like a month.
The next time we do the show, you have to go do it live in the mountains, okay?
I'm watching. I'm gonna be attacked by a bear. I'm like, this is your false spotter's lair. You told me to come out in the
Listen,
mountain.
That's so true. That's spring right now. Like
That's spring.
it hit 63 today, and we were outside playing. We had the football thrown around the last like 15 minutes of my 7th grade math class, and the kids were having a ball. And I was like, it's barely cold. It's barely warmer out than it was 2 weeks ago, but you know.
Okay, I get it. I guess I've been
We
privileged
appreciate
to live in sunny weather.
And so the funniest thing is like spring in New York, if you're in the sun, it's like hot as hell. But if you go in the shade, you're like freezing your ass off and you're like shivering. So it's like there's no in between. You're either standing in the sun and you're just like, screw it, I'm gonna be hot, or you're standing in the shade and it's like, whatever, I'm just gonna freeze.
Half and half it. Half of your body's in the shade, half your body's in the sun.
New York has 2 seasons, just winter and extremely hot summer. That's it. End of story. There's no easing into it. That's it.
Yep.
You just smack right into it. The hay fever up here in the northeast coast has been insane.
When I left Rochester to go down to Florida to go to Disney World a couple weeks ago, it was 70 degrees. The day we left, it started snowing. 3 days later, it was raining and it was like 50. And then the rest of the week, it was like in the high 30s, low 40s. And it was just like you experience every single season at the beginning of spring. And we call it like fake winter, fake spring, third winter, like the tease of spring, the fake summer. Like there's thousands of seasons that happen in the Northeast.
We just did it. We just ran the gamut in Michigan over the last 2 weeks. We had 85 and then it was snowing 2 days later. And it's like, I don't understand.
Lucky.
But it's happening.
Alex, all you do is move.
Wait, Jason, have you always lived in Michigan?
Yeah. I grew up here. I'm like literally halfway between Detroit and Ann Arbor, and kind of grew up in this area. Like I grew up in Plymouth, which is where the new book is set. Like historically, and my family's been there for a couple of generations. Like I said, my great grandfather worked in the actual wire factory building those temporary runways during World War II that the story set in, and then I went to MSU for college and then got a job basically just north of where I grew up. And I'm not quite a hermit. Like we have gone on a vacation or two and I have traveled outside of Southeastern Michigan, but I've never lived anywhere outside of Southeastern Michigan.
Yeah, that's
cool.
What
I was going to say about the art in your book that we really like the art. It has that Rosie the Riveter type of old school. I caught it immediately and popped right to you. I was like, yes,
it's so funny because like,
you got me with the hook.
Chris was talking earlier about like that post-war era where I think one of the big underlying themes, you know, it's not necessarily being on the nose because I don't like writing that just bangs you over the head with the message there, but like the economic hardship for like our family in this is the fact that like when dad went off to war, mom stepped in and became a Rosie and, you know, did that job and was doing the welding in this factory. But the minute the boys come home from the war, like it's back to the kitchen, like literally and figuratively, right? Like literally, like, I'm sorry, these are the men's jobs, right? That's what happened in our country and that's what happens in our story, but figuratively too, because it's like one of those wild things. It happened to African-American soldiers in World War I and World War II. You go off and you fight and you die for your country. You come back and you're back to being a second-class citizen.
Exactly.
Women where like, so we need you or our manufacturing machine grinds to a halt. But as soon as that's over, you need to go back and regress as if it never happened. And that's, I mean, that's why more than anything else, that's why the civil rights movement happens in the 50s and the 60s, because that World War II generation was like, wait a minute, right? That's why the women's right push gets, because that generation said, well, we got this taste of it, and now you're just asking us to forget it ever happened. And like you've got,
why can't we?
Story,
you just
you've got this economic hardship that my family's facing because dad's not coming home from the war. Mom doesn't have that economic stability that she got as a Rosie. Jane can do things, but you're not giving that job to a 15-year-old girl. And like all that tension builds, and it makes it so much harder to hide who you are. In this case, what she could clearly do to support her family, because of what she can now do, the trauma of finding out that her dad died, like awoke something in her. And then it's like, but if you release that, it's you know what? You know who did it better than anybody was every single good writer of X-Men over the last 60 years. Right?
Yeah.
Like X-Men has been one of my favorite books because it works as an analogy for almost any oppressed group, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can drop anybody in there and you can relate to it because it's as soon as other people are saying, no, it's not okay for you to be you, like it works for anybody. And that's kind of what Jane's going through. It's like, hey, I know I've got these abilities, but if I come out with that, what happens? Like I become ostracized, persona non grata, and it's like I can help, but I gotta hold back. I gotta stay secret. I gotta stay safe.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the whole. Yeah.
What was like? What made you want to tell this story? Because obviously, like, I'm sure there's other stories you could have went to. There's like, as writers, we've got 5 million things going on in our heads at any given moment. What made you really want to tell this one?
So for both of my books, it's there's stories floating around in my head, and there's been stories floating in my head for decades, but it was never enough motivation to take that big risk, that big leap, right?
Yep.
That thing that, look, it's always easier to do nothing than something. It's not making a decision is easier than making a decision. Doing nothing is easier than almost any doing anything. And like for Parallel, it wasn't enough that there was a dream of creating a comic since I was 12. It wasn't enough to have kind of a rough idea of at least the sci-fi aspect of the book. It literally took the stroke of inspiration when a former student of mine who I had years and years before was like kind of having this heartfelt conversation with me. And she was pushing 30 at this point and having that quarter life crisis of, exponential dread or existential dread of time passing and dreams deferred. And maybe I'm going through some similar midlife crisis at the exact same time about why am I not pursuing my dreams since I was 12 years old? And it clicked. And with this, super simple. It wasn't I had an idea of the comic book wrapping paper that goes around it, right? Somebody with abilities who needs to stay hidden because that isn't something that would be accepted in the world, right? And the analogies that come out of that. But that wasn't enough. I was spinning my wheels on it, and it literally took the convergence of interviewing my grandfather when he was about 95 and just talking to him about pre-war life and then his war years and then his post-war years, like getting it on film before it was too late, felt was pretty important. And that coming together with just watching in the 21st century a bunch of years of 8th graders in a row who these poor kids who clearly think that it should be okay to be themselves, and yet their parents or their classmates or society in general tells them that it's not. And those things came together, and it was that alchemy that allowed me to say, here's the shape, here's the structure, here are the themes, here's the comic book wrapping paper, and it all came together. And it's like a lightning bolt sometimes when it hits, and you just got to go, and you just got to tell it. And like, and Spider, for you, like the way I do it, like my process, it's funny because I was hearing hints of the same kind of thing in yours. Like I've had all 120 pages of Jane American, the story beats and like plotted out like for a while, right?
Yeah, I do too. That's what I'm saying.
Like, I know exactly how this ends, right? I know exactly how to get there. I know all the major story beats. And then what I do is I go and I start like filling it in, right? And then you have the actual writing process.
I call it like stringing everything together because I have the entire concept, but then I start to work out how I'm going to string it all together. And there's different ways that I give myself the flexibility of change, meaning that I can add something to the lore without it taking away from the story. If anything, making the story even stronger, and I leave myself open to that option.
Absolutely. I tell you what, though, having that shape, having that structure, and having those themes and a lot of the beats to start with does protect you, I found, from straying too far or expanding too much. Because like my editor on Parallel, Bob Sally, again, a wicked talented writer in his own right, and some of the executives at SourcePoint, Garrett gave me this advice, Travis McIntyre gave me this advice, Josh Warner gave me this advice about like start small, like keep it simple, like focus on a couple of characters. If you world build too fast, if you go too expansive, you're never going to get into any depth on anything, and it turns into rambling. And as clear as it seems in your head, and this is no different than any kind of writing you do, to an audience, it's just going to seem like threads of things that, because they're not inside your head, right? So it's much easier to focus on one or something smaller, and then maybe you build out, but like tell something more exhaustively than just little teeny bits and pieces of something larger and more unwieldy.
Yeah, that's it's funny because I wish I could just show you this right now. That's exactly how I've done it. I've started with my main character. His name is Einstein, and that's the world builder. In other words, he's going to be the what I built my entire comic around is this main character, and I'm starting out with him. And as he progresses on and he becomes who he becomes, there's others that are going to be sought out. So then in the next book, it's going to be like I'm doing 6 comic books.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do about 25 pages of comic. And each comic book is going to kind of introduce each character. It'll be the book of, I'm doing book 1 is going to be called the Book of Einstein. And this is going to be his story and how he finds the others that are like him. And this is what the book leads to the next character and then to the next, because at the end of the story, there's going to be a battle, and pretty much they're going to have to unite. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. But everything that you're saying is exactly what I'm doing. I'm glad because you're already a published writer. You're a professional, in my opinion. Thank you very much for talking to me. I feel like I learned a lot. No, this is great. I mean, people got to pay money for this. I'm getting this for nothing. No, it's all good. We helping each other. But I like the fact that at least, I can't say that I'm a professional writer, but I always knew that I could write because I grew up with comics since I was a child, and I never stopped collecting since I was I've been collecting since I was about 9 to 10 years old. And even when I took my breaks, I made up for it. I would buy bundles. I still got them. I'm still putting them away. Bundles, and I make up for it. And I'm doing all of my backfills. And I got to a point where the layer looks catastrophical on the bottom. There's so many comics that I still got to put away. But it's all good, though. It's part of the collecting game. We're all nuts, And,
Jason, we've got a running joke that Spider's Lair gets paid in comics at all of his jobs.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, this comic's worth ASM 300. So there you go.
Listen, when Marvel's ready, and I'm telling you guys, when you guys are ready at Marvel, the one up in New York City, listen, you're pulling out 2 books for me. I'll give you what you want, but I want 2 books. I want that Amazing Fantasies 15, Amazing Spider-Man #1. I know you guys got wrapped up in paper.
Look, I would be lying. I would be lying to you. I'd be lying to you if I didn't have if I wasn't harboring a fantasy that like Marvel calls one day, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
It's not necessarily the honor of whatever. It's not necessarily the financial or status windfall that might come with something like that. It's always like, oh, you want me on that project? Boy, I'm gonna have to do a lot of research. So the comps have got to start rolling in, right? I'm gonna need to I need the subscription to Marvel Unlimited. I'm gonna need to see all the. You're probably gonna have to send me the entire run of all the different volumes of Wolverine if you really want me to do that one shot, because.
That'd be amazing.
I don't want to get it
remember
wrong.
How many Sabretooth appearances? So if you would just hook me up with the whole thing, I'll read it all. I mean,
have that in your contract. I just need these comics. I need to keep them. I need to make sure I don't have to get them back.
So your guys' running joke. Your guys' running joke. I'm actually taking that joke very seriously. So check this out.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think I told you earlier, like I really like bang for your buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want a story to be rereadable. I want a story to have enough depth in it where you can not only want to reread it, but when you read it a second time, you're going to get something different out of it, right? I mean, that's literally one of the reasons Parallel sold out and got those 2 Ringo nominations, because people read it like 3 or 4 times and they were like, "Oh my god, I saw it differently this time. I saw it differently that time." And I appreciate that in the stories that I read.
That's good.
So that's something that I want to produce now. Kind of tangential to that, here I am promoting my very first Kickstarter, right? Because comics in the 21st century, even for some of the biggest name creators, this is how comics are made. Now, this is my first one because the way that Parallel came into existence is the most atypical story on the planet. It might as well have been produced in 1970, the way I physically pitched it at a con and SourcePoint sucked it up before I could even finish it. But it's time to, come back to the real world and do it the way everybody else does. Now, this is terrifying to me because it's a new experience, but I'm also organized, and I'm also somebody who, like I said, likes bang for your buck. So I have actually worked my butt off to make the number that we need for this book, according to all the kind of experts that I talked to, probably should have been north of $10,000. And I got it down to 7,200. And one of the ways I did that was, this is what popped into my head when you guys were talking about that. So I literally worked in an LCS for weekend upon weekend, and I got paid in all the shipping materials. Like, my books are going to go out in, check this out, my books are going to go out to you, if you back me, if you support me, in freaking Mylar. And the way that I can afford that is because I spent a bunch of weekends bagging and boarding other books and grading books and pulling stuff out and shelving stuff, which, let's be honest, it'd be the same way as like we were talking about, like, yeah, Marvel, I'll work for you if you hook me on comics. I was in that. I probably would have done that job for free. Right? Alphabetize the Amazing Spider-Man or renumber the Amazing. Yes, that's a terrible job. Let me get right to it.
I'm trying to complain about. I'm like, not again. I can't go through the whole Amazing Spider-Man series. There's over 940. I can't do it. No,
I'm gonna have to take these home with me to make sure they're numbered proper.
I worked my butt off in the build up to this campaign to make it something more reasonable, because it's so freaking important to me that this book gets out in the world. For the story it tells, for the themes that people connect to, for my grandma, for my grandpa who literally hung on as long as he could to see as much of this get produced as possible. You know what I mean? It's so important to me. So like, I found a printer that is an American printer that is literally, guys, I can't even check this out. Like, the way the world sometimes comes together. The printer for this book is located in Plymouth, Michigan, the place where the story takes place. They've been there for over 40 years.
Crazy.
Damn, that's amazing.
Now, one thing, number one. So I got to lower some of I got to knock off a couple $100 on what will, the estimated Kickstarter goal, because I'm not paying for shipping. I'm driving 10 minutes down the road and I'm going to pick them up. I'm also saved us some money on the campaign because I'm getting a discount on each of the books we print, because I'm in partnership with this printing company, with Greco, with Comics Wellspring as their comics branch, because we are designing an ad to go on the back, because it's a book about historical Plymouth, printed in Plymouth, partnership between a kid who grew up in Plymouth, whose family is in the story from Plymouth, printed there. And like, we're going to take their, this is breaking news, we're going to take their logo, their superhero comics logo, and we're going to put them in like a 1940s workers outfit with the newsboy cap and the overalls and the welding boards and stuff like that. Like, it's so wicked cool.
That's incredible.
That like,
have them all ride in a Plymouth, convertible Plymouth.
It's like what I kind of want to get across is like, my hustle on this is not just the passion for the material, but it's like, as a comic fan for decades and decades, I appreciate when my creators work their butt off for a good story. And so like a lot of my hustle is just because I want people to read a good story. And I want to get it in their hands in a way that is much more, in this case, affordable for us to get it out in the world, as opposed to like cost prohibitive, you know? So like all my hustle comes from passion, as opposed to like obsession or just going through the motions.
That's really good.
Well, I will say this much. I like everything you said, and we appreciate all the time you took to talk with us. And also, I will say this much. I'm always open for collaborations in the future. I want to work with anyone and everyone. I'm
Get that
down.
hookup.
That's what I say. No, it's not. I don't listen. I'm not worried about anything, politics, whatever. I want to make stories that's going to resonate with the world. Period. That's it.
Oh wait, hon.
That's
Does,
it.
Okay, I
That's
gotta
what it's
share.
all
I gotta
about to
share.
me.
I gotta share this with you because
Oh.
it's so funny that you say that. Because like you a moment ago you
This
gave,
is how
you
I am.
gave me-
Sorry, I just grabbed right
No,
on. Sorry
you gave
about
me
that. I do
way
that.
too much credit. You're like, you're the published professional, and thank you for listening to my story. Listen, dude. So one of the things that has been pretty hilarious over the last couple of years is like you come over and you give me a follow on Instagram. It's my only social, because public school teacher, you have too many socials, you get fired eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
Instagram's my
exactly.
own thing. It's a pretty friendly place. You come and follow me at J Douglas Writes. You cannot miss me because like my avatar or my picture is me striking a superhero pose in a hospital gown, holding onto an IV.
Yeah.
I had my colon cancer surgery a couple months ago. Like you cannot miss me on that thing. So
Yeah.
you come over and follow me at J Douglas Writes, and you DM me any questions, right? Anything, whatever. And what happens is hilarious. You know, you send me that first message, and it's very deferential. It's always deferential, right? Like the famous published the published author, whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to bother you, and I know you don't have a lot of time, but I was just wondering X, Y, and Z. And 9 times out of 10, what happens is eventually that person who thought they were going to get 2 seconds of my time is like, listen, Mr. Douglas, or whatever they're calling me, Jason, I gotta go. I've got a life to get to, and you have not just answered my question, but you're talking my ear off. Can we end this conversation right now? Like I've never big timed anybody. You come and hang out with me, and I will talk to you longer than you want to talk to me.
You
That
think
makes you
so?
a good
You think
person.
so? Challenge accepted.
Oh yeah, because Spider Slayer can talk. By the way, he can probably talk too. We joked around that. We joked around that this, like Chris's channel, would be renamed the Spider Slayer Takeover.
No, I don't want to take nothing over.
Oh, Jason, did you say?
Did
Did you say you like Matt Kent?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh yeah, I just picked up his new issue, Hairball, about a cat that causes problems for the family and kills them.
Nice.
I mean, because look, you can see the finger.
I'm reading.
And I love this.
My nightly reading right now is I'm doing My Management bootleg, his new hardcover with the sequel to My Management.
Yeah,
I love that guy.
He's a good author. I like him.
Oh my God, yes.
So when I saw this, I was like, oh sweet, it's about a cat. Then I read the descriptions. Oh sweet, I gotta get it even more.
Yeah.
So because the back of that cover sounds like it's just going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I was, without even knowing that was a thing, I was talking to someone recently because I saw he was doing a sale. Clear Comic Supplies, or Comic Clear Supplies, does these amazing, they're clear backer boards. So you can see the front and the back at the same exact time.
So what's it made out of?
I think it's
can
like,
you show that again?
So it's 100 bags and boards for $100 right now, because every time CGC's prices go
send
up,
me that link.
he does
that.
Send us that link.
Send it to us. I'm buying that. That's dope. I just say exactly what you're saying. Shows the front and the back.
Like these are amazing. I'll go see if I can
plastic.
find one real quick, but it's so perfect to do with like a book like that, because they're one of a kind where you have a beautiful cover and a beautiful back cover.
Yeah.
Look at this one, right? Infinity War #1. Now this don't just have a back cover; it has like multiple covers. But yeah, you know. Wait,
I would love to
that's-
put one of those in
that's
like
fine.
one of those long frames and just see
Right,
how I
so-
could
Oh,
mount it
nice,
without
yeah.
ruining the book.
Yeah, you see, so covers like that. Yeah, I have a couple of these. I will put them in 2 frames together. But yeah, this is nice. I've actually taken books like that and actually put them in frames, like long frames that would fit the whole book. But yeah, I got so many things I gotta put away. It's not even funny. It's a mess over
And
here.
I do
Because I like your mess. I love your
books.
mess.
I put a lot of books in top loaders just for the front and the back, and it's like heavier protection. But
yeah, I like top loaders. I use them a lot, but sometimes I just wanna I just got so many. I don't have enough room for everything. That's the problem.
He needs to buy a new house just to hold all his comics.
I need to get a bigger house just to get. It's not even. I'm serious. Like my collection takes up. Let's see, this room here, which is the Spider's Lair. I have an entire basement that's like, I'm still putting it together. It's in shambles because I've been putting together the rest of my comics because I don't just collect Spider-Man stuff. I collect everything. So everything Valiant, Marvel, DC, Image, it don't matter. Anything that's made from any comic company, I don't care. Independent, I don't care. I buy them all. I was pulling out these comics I have from an independent company called Demon Blood. It was dope.
That's a cool name for a company.
No, that's the name of a kid's company. That's the name of a comic. It's called Demon Blood.
Oh, I thought that was a company. Oh, snap. I love that.
So this was the local comic shop day.
Yeah.
And my local shop was
Rhino's Comics?
Yeah.
Rhino's Comics. It's somewhere on the back here. I can't remember exactly where. But like
I'm trying to remember.
There's a
where
board
I
in
had
here
that
and
at.
it is crystal clear.
So that's just a bag and a board. That is not a top
Nice.
loader that I'm looking at.
Yep.
That's dope. I like that. I want that.
That's cool.
Chris, is it about as sturdy as a standard piece of cardboard? How does it feel?
So he's done the drop test on it, and it literally, it
dope.
won't dent the corners. It won't, it doesn't do any of that stuff.
Dang, I need some of those.
It's genuinely amazing how well this is done, and each one of them has like a protective sheeting on it when you get it. So you take that off, so that way it's like literally crystal clear.
You got to put the code up here. Come on, give us the code. 15% off when you
stop teasing us.
You put in.
We didn't pay for the keys. We paid for the whole thing.
Yo. No, we gotta do advertisement. Come on, 50% off when you put in the Comics Lounge 1. There you go. Come on,
so he literally does a sale like this every single time CGC raises their prices. So he calls it the semi-annual CGC just raised their prices again sale.
Yeah, that's the whole code. The whole code. Sorry, the whole code. You just type it all in. The long ass code.
So over in the chat, K-pop's got a store she wants me to buy them from. So
SOC.
Yeah. So listen. K-pop. That means on May 6th when I'm doing my free comic book day signing at State of Comics, it means you're gonna have to watch my table as I go shop. Apparently, so get ready for that. I know she's coming to see me there.
What are you doing? You doing signings?
Yeah. So like this spring tour, it's like some signs. So I'm at. State of Comics is this massive on the rise premier shop in southeastern Michigan right now. So I'm doing free. I'm their guy for free comic book day, and going to be signing copies of this and then promoting because Kickstarter goes live on May 2nd. So I'm giving away. Oh well, here you go. There's a couple. I wish I had
people in Michigan.
One of the features of the special edition of Parallel is it's got 50 bonus pages in the back, like really good back matter, and like one of the standard cover gallery as well as a new story and some other cool stuff. But the cover gallery covers all these wicked cool variants that sold out of that first book. These awesome Donnie Darko variants, which are actually State of Comics variants, and I've got like literally one last copy of that in my personal collection that I'm going to be giving away that day for anybody who can you're coming to get Parallel signed, but if the Mystery Machine's going to be there too. That's right.
Wait, K-pop, are you going to that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, K-pop, I need to message you. I want you to give me a copy.
K-pop loves you. K-pop loves you.
Oh, I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you, Alex. So I was at in Indiana. I was at a Muncie convention last weekend in Indiana, and gold, bronze, and silver are popping on this cover. It looks
hell yeah.
It looks
Man, you're making me
So
want
let me
more.
ask you, look at
good.
how many pages are in your book?
Oh, this one has got 120.
I was gonna say 96. See, I was close, but no, that's even better. 120. I definitely want one of those. By the way, I'm gonna message you later. You're gonna send me one signed. We're gonna work some deal out, okay? And don't worry, when my book comes out, I'll do the same for you. I got you. Don't worry.
Like I'm doing.
I definitely want to read that.
I've got this.
Not only am I gonna read that, I'm gonna do. I'm sorry, go.
I got this last variant that I'm gonna give away at that signing because there's. Like, man, that thing sold out a couple years ago. Like I think Ryan said he runs State of Comics like 12 hours or something. And we've seen them pop up. I mean, it's not a huge print run or anything, but we saw them pick up or online $150 for slabbed ones. So I'm going to give one of those away for anybody who can walk up to the table and show me proof that they've backed Jane American. Since it'll be on the 6th and it'll go live on the 2nd. And if you back me at any level, you get your entry. You get like your bonus entries. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, like you know, I'm out there doing the grind that I know how to do, right? Like I went out and sold the first print run of that book, and I did Motor City Con, and I went to Baltimore and sold a exclusive variant and all that stuff. So while I'm doing that, I'm doing this scary new thing, which is trying to get this thing funded, right? And like now, live, like the most important thing you can do, right? This is just me speaking from all the studies that I've read and the people who've gone before me. Is like if you get people to sign up for the notification that your Kickstarter is going live, like before it goes live, it's literally a little green button on Kickstarter. Like it say, notify me when this thing goes live. You get those people who are watching your thing. The more you get those ahead of time, the more successful you're going to be. So like right now, like you want to support an indie creator. You want to support indie comics in general. You want to help out me because of I amused you with my idiocy for the last hour plus, or whatever it is, right? Or Jane American sounds interesting to you. Like the best thing you can do is just go to Kickstarter.com right now, search up Jane American, 2 words. It'll be the first one that pops up. You'll see it. It'll look like 1942, 1946 to you right there. Wait till you see the logo. It looks like it's off the side of a B-17 bomber. And,
one of my favorite kinds of art styles, by the way.
What's that?
One of my absolute favorite kinds of art styles is that pinup style.
You know that lettering, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love it. Dave Lentz designed that for me. I'm like, can you make it look like it comes off the side of a bomber? It's like DC bombshells and like that kind of. I'm like, can you give me that? And he did it, and it's gorgeous.
That's amazing.
Nice.
So nice. And you go there and you click that green button and you just say, hey, send me an email when it goes live on the 2nd. And then support it, right? I mean, it's the way projects get put in the world now. And it would
I'm glad he's saying this.
And plus, if you get in early, there's like that textless variant that I told you about. That's only going to be the first few days of the campaign. Those chromiums are going to go fast because there's valiant nerds out there like Spider to me.
Hell yeah. And I know I'm getting one of those. That's the one I'm going for. I want the chromium color.
And I'm telling you, like Chris and I were talking about this, like that Granddad's Attic variant is not going to last either. I mean, I'm not limited.
I want all the variants.
I want that.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I think I want all those variants. They sound
like so here's what I know about it. I have when I went and I took my tour of Wellsprings Comics through Greco, and I took the tour of the factory where it's going to be built. Like I held one of these soft touch laminates in my hand and like felt how it feels old. And then obviously I've got, the cover that Cena did for me and Dave aged for me. And I'm just as excited as anybody to actually hold one of those in my hand and like have that look and that feel of a book that's like, because let's be honest, the only thing that's missing is if I could just, how they bottle the new car smell or whatever, and you could like get a spray. We can just, if I could find a bottle of old comic smell, dude, I would spray every copy before I fulfilled the order because
that has to be made.
Oh, where is it?
There's like comics by Douglas.
When I'm doing comic on Mondays, I do that all the time. Like, I love the smell of comics in the morning. Exactly.
So, Sense by Design is in Rochester. I made a candle that smells like old comic books.
Look at you.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. Called it Sense to Astonish.
you actually made that?
It's a company in Rochester that literally like you mix it. There's like 100 different scents, and you just kind of mix until you feel like it's reached it.
Oh,
It
that's
smells
cool.
as close as I could possibly get. It's got old leather, old book smell, and like one other thing in it that like just adds to that scent. And I mean, it's amazing.
It's
light
that
it up all day
dry
long.
comic scent. Like when you, it's almost like an invisible powder when you open it up. It's like that dry comic scent. Like
Yep.
if you have good storage, I mean, because I've seen some people like their books are like a little damp, and I'm like, oh no. I've always made
Yeah, I mean,
sure that
you don't want the cat pee one. You want just
Yeah.
old comic, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like we're all saying that, but like if you know, you know, and no,
Yeah.
even if you don't know, you don't know what we're
I
talking
love the
about.
smell of old comic books, like the ones that I have that I've collected. I don't know. I know it's kind of weird to people, but I'm pretty sure you guys won't think it's weird. I like to smell old books and comic books.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. When I get them, I actually like when I buy them. I actually smell them out of buying them because I like the scent.
Yeah, because
Like,
it's
it's
paper.
amazing.
It's the way
Yeah.
that it was printed, especially the old school comics that have that old school newspaper. Like, there's a lot of laminated pages today that are fine, and I understand why they use them. They're more durable and they're gonna last longer.
Mhm.
But when you're talking about books that are coming from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, all of them gonna smell that way. It doesn't matter. I have come to points where I've opened up one of my old comics and I didn't even expect it. I'm like, oh, whoa, oh, you're a fresh one, aren't you? You know, that's how you know also that you kept them in good condition, because I had comics put away for over 30 years plus before I started breaking them out. I mean, if I start going through what I like to call, I have these boxes I call Pandora's box, but if you can imagine Pandora's box times about 8, 10, 12. I have about 8 of them in the solid black boxes, the short, tough boxes, and there's 120 in each of those boxes, and those are grails, and they're not just any grails, they're like holy grails. I mean, like, I'm gonna eventually do a show on it where I start submitting those, you know, because I know one box has nothing but signed books, but I can't submit those to CGC because, you know, you have to send those to CBCS because they have verification. I have so many books signed by Stan Lee right now, like books that I have just met the man over the year, jumping in the line. After a while, hey, come on over here. You know, he started to know me, sign my books. I mean, the first
Pushing
time
kids out of the line is like move.
No, I would always be like the security, you know, like I was the security guy there, because when they start like before they started calling Comic Con, they the first convention I can remember was in Madison Square Garden, and this is going back to like 1985 or maybe 86. And I know because I still have the book signed. That was like when Spider-Man was out, and that's when Kraven the Hunter was hunting the Spider-Man, and he had killed him, but he didn't kill him. He got poisoned, but his body went into a coma, so it seemed like he was dead, but he wasn't. So I have issue 2 of that tournament. And Mike Zeck signed that book for me, and Bob McFarlane. Yeah, and this is the first people I met at a convention, but this was
Spoilers
pretty
from
much
40 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. It's all good. But this
he's
is
showing his
much,
age.
Totally ruined some poor kid's day. There's a kid listening in. He was gonna read that storyline tomorrow.
I know, like, damn. He's like that's what it means. That's what I never read the storyline. I was saving it. I have it saved up on Marvel Unlimited.
What? The guy in those weird booties did what?
The guy in the loincloth did what?
The best part about that day was I was able to score an Amazing Spider-Man number 70 for $1 that day. And yes, I still have it to this day. No, it's not in CGC yet, but I'm gonna be kind to that thing. I'm gonna press it, I'm gonna clean it. And I still have that signed book by Bob. And like we were saying earlier, no one signed the covers then. This was signed on page 1. So no one signed the covers back then. So when I get that submitted to CGC, I can't even do that CGC because they ain't witnessed it then. That has to go to CBCS where they verify all the signatures. But yeah, I mean, like, I was going to these things before they were even called Comic Cons. I don't even know when they started calling them that. Probably back in 2004 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. But we've been having these conventions in Madison Square Garden forever. I mean, I've been going for years. I mean, this is like, they used to have it first. They had it in the convention hall. Then they started having it at the actual Madison Square Garden. That's why I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is growing into something. Okay, just keep going and see where it goes. Next thing you know, you got this crazy Comic Con. And it's so crazy to see because if you guys never went to the one in New York, it's insane because that place holds almost well. I know when they did the last Comic-Con, it was holding about 160,000 people, and I believe it because you couldn't move in that place. Hey, it's right after the pandemic. Everybody was dying to go to a Comic-Con. I went to the one prior to that one. That was the best one. I literally walked up and met David Nakayama, and I was like, "You look familiar to me, but I can't put my finger on it." We've been friends ever since. Like that's how good that Comic-Con was. That was the best one. The next year, you can't do anything. You can't walk anywhere. You know.
Wait, so Spider's Lair. Do you go to these cons with your mask on or mask off?
Mask on, buddy. Mask on.
Dang. So you guys walk up to you like, aren't you that Spider's Lair guy?
That's why when I go there, I'll either change my disguise. I usually like to go with Sting. I want to Sting. I actually made the news, so I'll give you where you can find the clip. I'm trying to remember the Comic-Con year, 2017 maybe. I was on Fox 5 News. I'm Sting, and I had my artist do my makeup for me and everything. I had the bat. It's funny. I just had that bat today. I just had this bat laying around. It was a yellow bat. I taped into with black electric tape because the masking tape you would think would stick. It was giving me a hard time. I used the electric tape and I still got this thing. And I'm carrying them around sometimes. I swear I'm like, I still got you. It's just one of these things I can't get rid of. It's just around all the time. Like I'll put it away a wall somewhere. Then I find it. I'm like, oh look, I still got this bat. But yeah, I've done a lot of crazy stuff at Comic-Con.
Amazing.
So
I met a lot of crazy people, a lot of famous people. I mean, you know, in my little line of work, like I kind of work for Hollywood, kind of like I do like weird odd and end jobs.
He has
like,
the hookups.
I mean, I was working on a show. What show was I just working on? It was an Apple TV show. The story is it's called.
We all know you're famous.
It's called. I don't know. You ever seen the show called Severance?
Yeah.
And huh?
Yeah,
no one saw. He's seen Severance.
Adam Scott and Christopher Walken, of course. Yes.
Right. Oh. That's what I was working on last week. I was on that show. I was doing Severance.
God dang.
That's awesome.
They were on season 2, I believe it's right now.
Yeah.
And,
can you get us a cameo?
Man, I can barely get a cameo.
Show up in the background.
Like what's weird about my job is like right now I don't know where I'm gonna be from day to day, but it's all good though, you know, because the job is worth it. So I just put in for the work and they give me this work. Yeah, but I was working Severance. I want to go back on that show. I did 2 days on that, and that show was incredible. And yes, I got to see Christopher Walken, the man. Oh my god,
man, you're so lucky.
Yo, man, that dude is so chill. All right, but you know, I give him his space. But what a nice guy. Getting older.
I have to say, I really want to meet him, but I also want to hear, like in real life, the guy who played Howard on Big Bang Theory do an impression of him, because that was probably one of the best impressions of Christopher Walken ever.
And you know, this is all you hear going there. Christopher Walken impression. Hey, that's all you hear. Like, this is all you're hearing. The minute I got the bed, I started laughing. I'm like, is he here? They're like, yeah, of course he's here. What do you think we're doing? And every time he comes out, they all do this to him. I don't know if it's to annoy him. I think he loves it. He goes, okay, everybody did good today. You're gonna cook it. Now go help yourself. Like it's funny. Like the show, I like it because I started watching the first episode. Wow, it's what a great concept. So pretty much for people that don't know about the show, I'll tell you real quick. It's kind of like you go to work, but you forget. In the future, you go to work, but they try to take your memory of work away from you. I guess work must be so horrible that you just have no memory of work. And this guy gets promoted, and he's being trained how to bring these people back out of their dream state, because I guess there's side effects to this. I'm only up to the first episode, but it looks very interesting. I'm going to start going through the whole thing, but tell them about your face, Jason. I'm definitely going to enjoy this because you're like, yeah, it's a good show. And I like the people on it. They were doing like it was a car chase, or I guess more like a commute to work kind of scene. And if you ever seen it's crazy because the cars, when you see it and it looks all nice, they're driving through the country, and for the most part they are kind of, because on the sides you could see that's all real. That's all they could do the special effects on that, but they just do it for the front. The cars are actually being pulled by a film car. It's weird. It's like your car's being pulled by this other bigger car truck thing that has lights on the inside, so when they're filming on the inside, you could see the light. Like, you gotta understand, you have to use so much light. It doesn't matter. You need so much light. You would think you wouldn't, but no, you do. Like what? Like even with this, I just got a new light. Understand? I can't figure out how this thing works. It's in my face, but I need it because without it, everything's dark. So it's just weird to see this. They're going up and down, and this is up and down in upstate New York. I think we were in where the hell was I? Hackensack, I believe. And we were just driving up and down this road. No, not Hackensack. I'm sorry. That's Jersey. See, this is how I am. I go everywhere. Roanoke, New York. That's where we were.
Okay.
And we were just going, we were just going all up and down this road. I like the town that I was in because one of the towns had this lady comes out. Well, she owns the store, and her stairs on the store says Jail Trump. So I'm like, this is gonna be fun. And she comes out to all of us. She goes, "You want to hear a funny story?" And this is her story to us. We don't know this lady. She just comes out. She goes, "Want to hear a funny story?" Because I think what they were doing was they covered the signs with black board, so they could just change it to put whatever image they want later on. So it's like legit street signs, but the police close off the section so they could do their filming. So this is an entire stretch of like 1.5 miles of road that they got to cover these signs. So she comes out very concerned. So she goes, "You want to hear a funny story?" So we're like, "Yeah, sure." She goes, "This is a spot that I got hit with the car. I fly up in the air about 20 feet. I do like 3 turns. I crack my skull open right there, but I'm alive."
Shit.
And this is why they're putting the signs up. So I think she was worried because we're covering the signs that they put up in place of her getting hit. Now, this is a country road that has no traffic. I'm not laughing at the lady. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to picture how this happened where there is no traffic here at all. It's the deadest place I've ever been in my life. It's literally a country rural road. So just imagine that. You're walking across a country rural road, nothing. There's no crosswalk there, nothing. And apparently she gets hit. Poor lady. Okay. But she was getting upset because we were covering the sign. So I had to explain to her, "Oh, no, we're only filming, but this will be down soon." Yeah. Come to find out the guys were wrong. They put it in the wrong spot. Or maybe she called the mayor. Who knows? All I know is I told her, "Listen, we're going to remove the signs. You don't have to worry. You're going to be safe now." Well, I just wanted to be crazy because she literally just came up to us. And we looked at her. We're like, "Oh, that's a nice story." She said, "Well," I said, "That's not funny. We felt bad for what happened." But, afterwards, we were like, "Yeah, this is kind of funny." But
it wasn't funny in the moment. It was funny afterwards.
Yeah, afterwards, because, you're not expecting somebody to come up to you and tell you, "Oh, by the way, this is a spot I almost died. What are you guys up to?"
I was like, "Hey, my name is this."
That's going to save lives. The sign that's going to save lives, we'll cover it up. But don't worry, everybody's going to be all right. And she was legitimately worried. It's just crazy. Because when you go to these towns, I don't know how they break it to them. We're going to be filming here and whatnot. But, you get your people that just come
watch it. They'll be filming where I live one day. I'm going to get hit. Then I'm always like, "Oh my God, is that spider's lair?" So I'm like, with my leg broken, I don't care. I was like, "Oh my God, what's up?"
This is why I wear the mask. Very few people in the high.
So I can't see you. like, sorry, I don't know his description. He was wearing a mask and a hat.
Exactly. There you go. You see, you can't digitize my image, not yet. Oh, don't worry. I will. You gotta understand. It's just like with everything else. All this will be revealed in time, and you guys understand my reasonings as to why. I mean, if I use my life, I would become famous like that. I don't care for that. I want to do it on my merits, not on what I've already done, not on what I already accomplished.
You're just too good looking for this world, aren't you?
Oh my God,
that's it, isn't it?
It is.
No, that's not it. That's not
you
it.
don't want to make us feel bad, dude. That's it, right?
No. Believe me, I'm ugly. No,
you're too beautiful that when you see your face, our faces go to melt.
It's not that. It's like having a great power, and I have to keep myself masked because with great power comes great responsibility.
It's the same reason that Elsa wears gloves.
Exactly. It's the same reason why God can't talk to you. He's too good and pure. That's it. It's
gonna be like the waiters of the Lost Ark. Like our souls gonna be like.
Yes, remember when they were melted? That's what's gonna happen.
You're gonna melt faces.
Faces will melt. Yes, faces will melt everywhere. I don't want to.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe you know this. In Spider, maybe you know this because you're like an '80s comic guy. So something that I put on my list recently. was I don't know, maybe anticipation of Indy 5, but like I wanted to get the Marvel adaptations of Raiders of the Lost Ark and
Oh my God.
basically the first 3 movies. And I think it was like an issue 3 of the Raiders mini. It's just like a Star Wars novelization where some of the cut scenes or some of the little things are like in there. And so like you know how in Raiders of the Lost Ark where after the freighter and like Indy swims out there and they're like he's gone, he's whatever, and he gets on the sub.
Yeah.
And then it's like they cut and then you're in the sub base and you're like, what, how the hell did he do that? Was he underwater the whole time? So like literally in the comic, you see him, they never submerge, and he's just getting the crap beat out of him, and he's got like his whip tied around the periscope, and they've got the whole scene that you don't see in the movie of him like being drugged behind the submarine for like 100 miles until they pull into the sub pen. And it's just it's so cool to have that scene in there that you never see in the movie.
That's the Raiders of the Lost Ark 4-part miniseries, correct?
Yeah. I think it's issue 3.
I have that. I everything you said I recognize because I just read that like about a couple of weeks ago. I have the entire. I've been pulling them because the new Indy 5, and I've been finding my old Indy. I've been finding my Raiders of the Lost Ark and my Indiana Jones, and I've been finding a lot of them in barcode editions. Oh, I'm having fun putting this collection together.
What don't you have, Spider's Lair?
I don't know yet. That's the problem. I pulled a Batman. I don't know what number it was, but the cover looked amazing. It had like these red bats on it. And like this black bat in the background, and it was like a $750 comic. I have no idea. I pulled one with the Joker, and he had like the bat red eyes, and I was like, "This looked like it's special." Another $800 book. I don't know. I have so many of these books laying around. I have those in order though, so I haven't touched those in years. But every once in a while, I just pick through it, and I'm like, "Wait, I got this book. I got this one. I have like grails, like just another. I have to go through it. It's too many. I have about." I don't know, 15,000 comics, maybe more. I don't know. I honestly don't know. They're not all in boxes yet. It's still out. I have in a corner. Let's see. Can you see it? Okay. Right in that corner where that Spider-Man poster's at.
Which one?
Like the Spider-Man poster, like right there.
There's so many Spider-Man posters.
That one right there. In this corner where that paint is at, I have there about maybe 800 bundles just laying there. Well, I'll pull out one so you can see what they look like. Hold on. So
while he's doing that, make sure if you're watching, and Alex, if you haven't already, make sure you go to the Kickstarter because
I already copied and pasted
Jason is at 99 followers.
Right.
Let's get him to 100.
This is a box. This is just a
if I'm follower number 100, do I get it for free?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You get to
oh, look at these. I
will sign every single one of your books for free.
Yeah. Oh,
sweet.
I got that one. I got those two. Oh, look. See, I got all these books I haven't gone through yet. The Miles Morales, Spider-Man. See, I do a weekly show. I haven't done it. But I'm going to start filming again because I have too many books. So I used to do 4 bundles. That like all these bundles come with 3 comics in them. So, like I said, I get these from my special connection because when I was very young, I was introduced into, like, let's say, the Comic Guild, the official one, And to this day, I still have connects in the business because, I mean, one of my first jobs was working in an old man's comic book shop, And this man sat down with me. He was like, "You see that Amazing Spider-Man number 6? I'm gonna give that to you for 2 weeks of work." I was like, "Okay, sure." It was worth, I don't know, cool. Back then. A couple of bucks.
Deal.
No, I didn't know that I was going to continue collecting. I'm in the moment just thinking, oh, I love this comic books anyway. And this is an old one. It was old back then. I think back then he wanted $15 for it. Back then. So, I don't know what a 6 is worth now. A couple of grand. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, over the years, this is how I started picking up the habit. Like I was young. I was always buying from the newsstands. And I used to hate. And this could relate to you, Jason. Maybe you'll get this. I used to hate buying the newsstand ones because, back in the day, you were getting the comic exclusive ones, the ones that had the Spider-Man. Like, I'm Spider-Man's lair. Of course, I'm going to want the one with the Spider-Man printed on the cover. And I used to always get mad because I used to miss those a lot. So I would buy all of the damn ones from the freaking newsstand. And I had a good guy that used to take my books for me and put them to the side for me because he knew I was a collector. So he was like, "Listen, my friend, I'm going to take care of you. So I know you like Spider-Man. I know you like Batman. He will pull all the ones I like. He said, I take the best ones and put them to the side for you. Wrap them up in newspaper for me and everything, like the old school newspaper, the way it's supposed to be done. And I would get mad. I was like, yeah, because I think that the other ones are going to be worth more money one day. Then we come to find out years later that the ones from the newsstands are the ones that are the most rarest because they're in limited print. And these are the ones that go back to get destroyed. So even when you find one, it's still a good find. So, yeah I started getting mad at that. But I just love the fact that as I got older, I started realizing. But there is one I wanted to show you guys. And this is a very special book because I found it the other day. And I even knew looking at it. And I knew looking at it that I had something that was not. Oh, man.
Of this world?
Oh, no, you'll see. It's not going to look like anything to you guys. But I'll tell you why this is special in a minute. Do you see why?
Cool.
Do you see why?
I see a glare.
Do you see that? Do you see that DC universe?
Oh yeah. That thing.
Those were like extremely rare.
Is so free. Like I had this for a while, right? And I was looking up some new variants. So anything that you find like, cause you guys at dollar store been diving, you may come across these. If you come across that logo, this book is extremely rare. That is the rarest. Like for the DC universe, this is what you need to have. Not the barcodes will work more too, but this code right here, and it's up. It's only on about, from what I understand, 10 books. This is one of the 10, and I know I have more than this. I've seen a bunch of them. Yeah. So anything with that, if you come across anything with a dollar bin and you see, look for the DC universe logo. This is why I tell everybody, because you're not gonna. Once you see that, that's a rare book. It's very rare.
Sounds like next week we're gonna be doing a lot of Marvel and DC news because there's a lot coming out, I believe, with Marvel and DC in the next probably 2 days or so, with everything going on with actors and stuff.
You don't even want to know what's going to be happening with
Chris. Do you think some of the news will be that Marvel is setting me up for? I mean, I'm probably just write a one shot, but they're going to set me up with all the back issues. So
I hope.
Right? You think
I hope so.
Be one of the big announcements.
I told them that you wanted the Amazing Spider-Man.
I'm looking forward to that announcement for sure.
Yeah.
Oh wait, real quick. I want to show you guys what I got
Jason,
over
thank
the
you so
weekend.
much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh yeah, guys, this was a blast. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for
it's incredible meeting you, Jason.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for giving me that opportunity to talk about my books and a bit of my journey, and hopefully getting the word out there. And let's get this thing funded and get this thing supported.
I can't wait to read your book.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a ton of fun.
Sounds like good. We definitely gotta support this for sure. This is Spider's Lair approved.
Yeah, just share that link around. That's my understanding is that's the way it gets done. So
I'm gonna give it to my kids, my high schooler, in my comic book club next week. I'm gonna give it to them because they love the comics.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
All right, talk to you guys soon.
Have a good night.
Nice talking to you guys.
See you guys all next
week. Good night, everybody.
See you next week, guys. Same time, same place.
Yep.
Have a good night.